Seeing the pictures, so they're quite traumatised by what's happening.
Also ahead, the teenager in Newham killed close to where his brother was stabbed to death 4 years ago. The husband of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe wants sanctions to be imposed on members of the Iranian government as she faces prison again.
You know, we did feel that, OK, we've done the sentence, we're close to the end. There's a bit of, you know, games going on, but we're close to the end. And now suddenly the goalposts have moved.
And Chelsea's next step towards European glory. The Blues take on Real Madrid after those Super League plans were shelved. Good evening. It is a crisis unfolding thousands of miles away from the capital. And tonight, Londoners with loved ones in India are desperately waiting for news as the country's hospitals struggle to cope with a record number of infections in its second wave. Today, the UK's first COVID aid has arrived, ventilators and oxygen concentrators to try to ease the pressure on overwhelmed hospitals. More will be sent later this week as part of an international effort. It is help which is so desperately needed. Martin Stew's report contains images which are distressing.
Special prayers at Sri Ganapathy Temple in Wimbledon. Offerings to Dhanvantri, Lord of Medicine, in a hope he can help loved ones caught in India's COVID catastrophe.
The Indian devotees who come here are just desperate. They are just in tears when they tell us about how they're suffering. Many of them are medics, or they've come here to work or to settle with their family, but they've got parents and other family members in India, and they just feel so helpless.
340,000 people in India are known to have caught COVID in the last 24 hours, but the true rate could be much higher. Hospitals are short of beds and oxygen, and the health service is overrun. With many temples around the world closed, thousands are watching Sridhar Iyer's services in Wimbledon online. 20 of his relatives in India have COVID. 3 are in intensive care.
When you see the pictures on the news, how scared are you?
Very, very heavy. That not explain words in words. Very, very bad situation.
The flight he'd booked to go home and help has been cancelled. His wife's parents survived COVID, but she too knows what it's like to feel helpless.
When people knew they were ill with COVID, even their normal support system of friends, relatives or neighbours were too scared to come and help them.
Some aid, including ventilators and medical supplies from the UK, is starting to arrive. The Eastern Temple has launched an emergency appeal. £100,000 has already been raised, but much more is needed.
Nobody is safe until everybody is safe, and I think that's something that we need to realise, that we need to work collaboratively because the pandemic will hit us all.
Hi, I'm Chintal and I'm an NHS doctor in London.
As a part of Operation Halo, GP Chintal Patel tries to help by spreading the word about vaccinations, but even she feels powerless to help.
My uncle was unwell in intensive care and ventilated 3 weeks ago, and it feels odd saying it, but you know, he was one of the lucky ones. He was somebody that did have access to healthcare. It wasn't at the critical stage that it is now, and he's actually managed to come home. But I'm really worried for those that don't have that access, and the situation now is at a totally different level.
Counselling is being offered to families in the UK. Help in India is harder to come by. Martin Stew, ITV News.
There'll be more on the situation in India on the ITV News at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Mary.
Coming up on the programme, British aid arrives in India as the COVID crisis worsens. The emergency medical supplies were delivered to Delhi, but after another day of record cases, can it help get the virus under control? Also ahead, the Prime Minister's cabinet colleagues leap to his defence as the pressure grows on Boris Johnson. Plus,
from day one, we never wanted to move anywhere else.
One of Britain's longest-serving landladies is celebrating half a century behind the bar. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
The Prime Minister has been accused of dismally failing to secure the release of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. In an urgent question to the Commons this afternoon, her North London MP, Phillips questioned what efforts Boris Johnson was putting into Nazanin's release after she was handed a new year-long jail sentence in Iran yesterday. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is at Westminster. Simon, what's been the reaction to the new sentence?
Well, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is still under house arrest at her parents' home in Tehran, so she was able to watch what was happening in Parliament today online. Richard, her husband, told me the new prison sentence has left her angry.
Initially she was quite calm, and then as the day went on yesterday and this morning, really angry, and actually I've just spoken to her just after the parliamentary debate, and yeah, very angry. You know, we did feel that, OK, we've done the sentence, we're close to the end, there's a bit of, you know, games going on, but we're close to the end, and now suddenly the goalposts have moved.
In the Commons, a Foreign Office minister insisted the government had relentlessly lobbied on behalf of Mrs Zaghari-Ratcliffe, but her MP described the Prime Minister's efforts as a dismal failure.
The Prime Minister did not even arrange UK officials to attend Nazanin's recent court hearing, which might have ensured that she got a free and fair trial. He still hasn't got his government to pay the £400 million debt that we as a country owe Iran.
Her anger and frustration is misdirected because Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe and the other British dual nationals held in arbitrary detention are being held by Iran. It is on them.
The former Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, wanted to know when Iran was going to be punished.
Ultimately, what are the consequences going to be for Iran of continuing with hostage diplomacy? Because otherwise it's all bark and no bite.
Richard Ratcliffe said he supported targeted sanctions against key members of the Iranian regime.
It's where you say, OK, this is a bad act, this is a human rights abuse, these are the people that are responsible for it, and so we're sanctioning them as individuals, which means travel ban and asset freeze.
Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe's lawyers plan to appeal the latest prison sentence. The couple have decided not to tell their daughter Gabriella what's happening until they know for certain if her mum is going back to jail. Ronke.
Thank you, Simon. The council housing managers responsible for Grenfell Tower dismissed warnings from residents over fire safety in the years before the fire that killed 72 people. The Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Association thought they were scaremongering. Rags Mortel reports.
Grenfell could have been safer. Documents shown at the inquiry reveal that residents initially favoured a safer zinc metal cladding.
Various cladding options have been shown to residents, with the composite zinc cladding system being favoured by the majority.
This was in 2012, 5 years before the fire. But when the renovation work started 2 years later, the cladding was switched to a highly flammable aluminium composite material known as ACM, and residents were never told.
Was the change from zinc to aluminium clearly signalled to the residents?
Not by myself, no.
By anybody else?
I don't know, I suspect not. I do solemnly...
Claire Williams was the project manager for the tower's refurbishment for the KCTMO, the council's housing organisation.
It would have been perhaps more productive to say, we did show you this, but it's become this. It was an omission on my part.
But long before the fire, residents gave many fire safety warnings to the KCTMO. One of them even wrote a blog predicting a catastrophic event in the tower 8 months before it actually happened. But the KCTMO actively ignored these predictions. They blocked the blog from their own computer system and dismissed the warnings as scaremongering. But private emails show the KCTMO did have fire safety concerns. This email about a faulty ventilation system that wasn't fixed 3 years before the fire said, "Let's hope our luck holds and there are no fires in the meantime."
Did you think at the time that hoping your luck would hold, a sort of fingers crossed attitude, was really an appropriate way of discharging your health and safety functions?
As I say, I didn't think of it in those terms, but I appreciate it is a health and safety issue, which is why both of us were trying to keep it moving forward.
And just 3 years later, the fire at Grenfell did happen, and 72 people died.
And this afternoon, the Fire Safety Bill, which aims to make it clearer where responsibility for fire safety lies, has been sent back to the House of Lords for the fourth time. MPs rejected an amendment which would protect leaseholders from being passed cladding costs. Rags, I mean, the politicians are struggling, really struggling to reach an agreement on this, aren't they?
That's right, Ronke. It's incredible to think we're approaching the 4th anniversary of the Grenfell fire, and we're not talking about the end of flammable cladding on buildings, but who pays when the work actually starts? This afternoon, MPs once again voted against an amendment that would stop residents paying for these huge costs of removing flammable material off buildings. But the government is struggling to pass its fire safety bill because each time it goes to the House of Lords, they say it's very, very unfair and it gets sent back down. But the longer politicians debate, the longer people remain in unsafe buildings. And residents in this so-called cladding scandal can't afford to wait. Their lives are at risk and their livelihoods are at risk because they can't afford to pay these huge costs.
Rags, thank you very much. The inquest into the Fishmongers Hall attack has heard how the terrorist behind the plot spoke with Lee Rigby's killer while in jail. Convicted terrorist Usman Khan spent 8 years in prison before carrying out the attack in November 2019. Today at the inquest into the 2 victims' deaths, it was claimed that he was involved in a string of violent incidents and extremist bullying while behind bars. A report has found the autistic teenager who threw a 6-year-old boy from a balcony at the Tate Modern was not considered a risk to others. Jonty Bravery had previously assaulted a police officer, but a serious case review today said care staff dismissed previous incidents as attention-seeking. Bravery is currently serving a 15-year jail term for attempted murder. A teenage boy stabbed to death in Newham was killed close to where his brother was fatally stabbed 4 years ago. The 18-year-old, named by friends as Junior Jar, died yesterday afternoon. Chloe Keedy sent this report from the scene.
Well, this whole area was still a crime scene until about an hour and a half ago. Police were called here in the middle of the afternoon yesterday at around 2:45 to reports that an 18-year-old man had been stabbed. People here have named him as Junior Jar. I've spent most of today here and I've been chatting to some of his friends. Lots of them came to bring flowers and photos and many of them stayed all afternoon. They described him as bright and funny and kind, the sort of friend who would always look out for you, the sort of friend who would always look after you. I'm told that he was studying for a business qualification and that he hoped to go off to university. In an almost unbelievably cruel set of circumstances, the spot where Junior was killed is only around 100 yards from where his big brother was stabbed to death 4 years ago. Ahmed Din Jar was killed when he went to the local newsagents to buy a drink. He was 21. This whole area has been cordoned off all day. Forensics officers have been combing the pavement. At one point, they seem to be searching for something underneath a parked car. At this stage, there have been no arrests. The police have gone home now. Many of Junior's friends are still here.
Still to come, the author Paula Bell on how powerlifting helped her cope with grief. Tottenham gets its own artist in residence, the man behind this colourful mural, which has literally popped up and wrapped around a building. Sport, and Chelsea take on Real Madrid later in a crucial first leg of their Champions League semi-final. The Blues will be hoping to put the fallout from their European Super League behind them and gain an early advantage away from home to put them one step closer to a third Champions League final. Antoine Allen is here. Antoine.
Yes, tonight's game is between two teams who plotted to leave the Champions League for what they believe to be the more financially lucrative pastures of the European Super League. If it wasn't for the protests of players, commentators and fans literally outside of stadiums like Stamford Bridge, then the European Super League may have played on, but instead it received the red card and a victory for fan power. Ironically, today is the first game between Real Madrid and Chelsea in the Champions League. An example of what the Champions League is made for. It's a very special tournament whereby the best teams in Europe can play each other with good results and a little bit of luck of the draw. Chelsea will be up against history tonight, as Real Madrid are a giant of the tournament with 13 victories to their name, where Chelsea's only won the tournament once, back in 2012 with club legends like Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard and John Terry. Tonight, Chelsea's younger teams will be hoping to write their name in history, and history is on their side. The 2 times that Real Madrid and Chelsea have met in different tournaments, Chelsea have won both games, but tonight they'll be hoping to make it 3 in a row. At 8 p.m, if they are victorious, and the next leg in May, it could be an all-English final with Manchester City able to beat PSG. Then, hopefully, we'll put forward the bad moment we've had in football with an all-English fairy tale.
Exciting stuff, Antoine. Thank you. 3 5-kilometre runs will be staged in Surrey next month as part of tests to bring back major sporting events. Scientific data will be drawn from people taking part in the races at Kempton Park on May the 15th. Organiser Hugh Brasher, who helped stage the London Marathon, says it will help the government for the return of spectator sport. And the Queen has been pictured carrying out official duties for the first time since the death of her husband, Prince Philip. She held virtual audience with international ambassadors from Windsor Castle today. The 2 weeks of national mourning following the Duke of Edinburgh's death ended on Friday. Next, when Paula Bell's husband took his own life 6 years ago, in her grief, she started powerlifting, building up her strength physically and mentally in the years that have followed. Now, a competitive amateur powerlifter, she wants to pass on what she's learned. Her new book is called Stronger, and Paula joins me now. Paula, your husband took his life in 2015. That's 6 months before his 40th birthday. Now, I know your book is part memoir, but was your husband's death the catalyst that led to writing this book?
Yes, I mean, it was really, it was the catalyst for why I actually started weight training in the first place, which began as a very physical, strength-orientated goal of, you know, desperately trying to fill the gap where he was not, in terms of just being able to actually physically do things around the house and lift my own luggage. And then that segued into just actually realizing that it wasn't just a physical goal, that, you know, it made things more bearable mentally, and it gave me a routine, and it just gave so many other things like confidence and self-esteem and so on into my life. And so fast forward to today, that has segued into actually competing at an amateur level at powerlifting, which effectively is trying to lift the heaviest weights possible that you can manage.
And you can lift almost twice your body weight.
I can lift over twice my own body weight, yes.
It's funny because when I think of grief, I also think of exercises which are more peaceful. I mean, people turn to things like yoga. What made you turn to powerlifting?
I think with grief, the idea of peace is an interesting one, because the truth is you don't have peace from anything, because, you know, it's that old saying of wherever you go, there you are. So it's something that you carry with you in every single scenario. The way that weightlifting and weight training helped me was that, for me anyway, and this is true of other people, is that it creates like a white noise. So when you're doing it, you don't actually think of very much when it's going on. When you are locking out and when you are lifting a heavy weight, it sounds really counterintuitive, but the word that I would describe is actually serenity. And when you're going through something really difficult, that's something that you really gravitate towards.
And it's interesting because most people think of exercise and losing weight, but you're trying to create a different narrative around that, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, this conversation is definitely underway already on social media, but in Stronger, so the book which is out this week, it just creates a different case for why fitness and weight loss are two different endeavors. You know, and it doesn't mean that sometimes they can't overlap, but it's about rethinking how we look at fitness and looking at it from a point of view of, what do you actually enjoy doing? Like, what gives you joy? What is something that you look forward to doing rather than dreading it? And I definitely think that during the course of the pandemic, I think that people have realized how powerful that mental well-being dimension is to physical movement, whatever your abilities may be. And that's definitely something that the book pushes forward in terms of that strength isn't just about an aesthetic. It's not about a particular sport. It's about how you feel emotionally, mentally, and physically.
And the book, as we said, is called Stronger, and we wish you every success with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, you might have already spotted one of his colourful creations across the capital. Now, the artist Yinka Ilori has a new piece in Tottenham, which is hard to miss. Sally has been to see it. Sally, tell us more.
Well, Yinka Ilori, if you hadn't heard of him, is an up-and-coming artist and designer. And in Tottenham Hale, they've got loads of building works going on. They're creating a residential and eating area, a bit like the one at King's Cross in St Pancras. And they thought, let's brighten this place up while we're building it. So they've effectively created a hoarding around a building, which sounds very dull, but they've got Yinka to make it, and it's really quite strong and pretty funky. So let's have a look.
Yinka Ilori is a London designer with a bit of history here.
I love Tottenham with all my heart.
Now, in the hustle and bustle and building work of Tottenham, he's back with an enormous burst of colour.
One of the most striking things about this artwork, aside from the colour, is the length. They have not held back. It goes on and on and on some more.
It's 56 metres long, in fact, wrapped around the heart of Hale housing development, where he is now the artist in residence.
The colours are amazing, and you're wearing the matching colours today as
Intentional,
well.
yes.
And you obviously love colour.
I do, yeah. I think I grew up in the Nigerian household, so my parents wore a lot of pink and orange, and lots of vibrant colours. But also, I love pink, and I love.
Me too.
I love all these colours here.
They are vivid through his other murals in London too, including Battersea and Harrow. But Yinka first made a name for himself upcycling chairs, many of which he bought here in Tottenham.
And it used to be a really incredible second-hand furniture shop in Tottenham, which is now closed. So I spent about a decade going there every week, buying chairs, taking it to my parents' house. So Tottenham is really a special place because it actually helped me find chairs. Yeah.
No one else can say that.
No.
Tottenham helped me find chairs. I love that.
Around the top, Yinka has written, "As you pass me by, know that it is nothing but love from me."
But love is key. In all we do, love is key.
He'll be creating art here for 2 years, putting that love and colour at the heart of Tottenham Hale.
Now, Sally, I saw some amazing footage of the supermoon last night. Is there more to come?
Well, it will be out there tonight, but we've got a bit more cloud tonight. We've got some lovely photos of it from last night. Look at that, it's at Bushy Park. Confusingly, it's called the pink supermoon, but it's not pink. It's you might have heard me say this last night. It's called pink because it's named after moss pink and moss phlox, which grows around this time of year. But it is 14% bigger than the usual moon you would see and about 30% brighter. So you might catch a bit of it tonight. But as I said, there is a bit more cloud out there. But cloud indicates we might get a tiny bit at some point in the next couple of days of rain. Let's take a look.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Well, I hope, like our little friend here, you managed to see a bit of sunshine today. Certainly very calm conditions at Twickenham across the Thames there. Tomorrow it's going to feel a little bit cooler and be a bit cloudier out there. And we've got some showers around. Not everyone's seeing them, a bit like I've been saying so far this week. We're probably going to see most of the showers on Wednesday night, and then from Thursday through to Sunday there'll still be some out there, but again staying for many quite dry, and hopefully there'll be a bit of sunshine around at times. But if it is rain you are after, you might be interested to know that so far this month the south of England has seen only 7% of its average rainfall, and London only 2%. Those are the figures from this morning. In fact, some parts of London haven't seen any rain this month, so we do need it. I keep going on about that. Right, tonight you can see there's a fair bit more cloud out there. The odd shower just clipping our part of the world. Many areas staying dry, though. With that cloud, it won't be quite as cold first thing tomorrow morning. Temperatures, there we go, in single figures, and should be frost-free first thing tomorrow. But a bit of a cloudier picture out there. The odd shower moving through, but still many areas staying dry. In fact, some areas might just get a slightly brighter picture, particularly the further east you are. But it is going to feel a bit colder tomorrow. We've got this breeze breeze coming off the North Sea, just taking the edge off the temperature. So we had a high of 17 today, probably getting to highs of 12 to 14 degrees tomorrow. Now, the evening, again, you might see a few showers passing through, but we're likely to see a little bit more rain later on in the night. So it might start off a little bit damp on Thursday morning, particularly in the east, and then throughout the next few days, a few more showers to come, a bit of sunshine at times, feeling a little bit cooler. And that is it for now. Cheerio.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Finally, the nominations are in for this year's BAFTAs, and there's plenty of recognition for London's TV stars.
But sometimes you have to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better.
The dance group Diversity has been nominated for the Must See Moment Award for their Black Lives Matter routine on Britain's Got Talent. But there are also nods to some of TV's more light-hearted moments from 2020.
But I still need a bit of milk, full fat, which I've warmed in the microwave.
Nigella Lawson, who's from Wandsworth, has also been nominated for that bizarre pronunciation of microwave on her show Cook, Eat, Repeat. That's it. We're back with the latest after ITV News or should I say News at 10. Coming up, Mary with the ITV Evening News, but from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye.